Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're eating pizza, so without further ado, let's get started. I might be the only person who use like a scissor to cut pizza. Because I use scissor, you can see the strings, but it's there. Let's see. See? It's there, told you. Sorry if there's something wrong with my throat. I can't speak loudly because I just finished an online class, so my throat is still a little strained. Open up. This time it's not all cheese. I put onions, chopped up onions, green pepper, and sausages, and some pizza sauce. I prepared the dough before the class, so after the class was done, it was almost noon. I was rushing through everything. I wasn't planning I'm making another video, but when the pizza was done, I feel this involuntary, uncontrollable urge to share it with you guys. I think it would have been more perfect if I put some kimchi sauce in it. You know, a little spicier. The crust isn't crunchy because I didn't follow the regular procedure. If I want the crust to be crunchy, crispy. I usually have a different procedure than this. Still pretty good. Last night, before 11, I was ready to go to bed. Actually, I went to bed a little later than usual because, as you know, I've been infatuated and I have had this huge crush on the new TV show and the songs. So I was listening to the songs, I was checking all the videos. I don't think this crush is gonna last long, but last night I was binge watching all the videos. 然后香蜜成真。So I went bed a little late, before 11 p.m. I checked my phone, and one of my former colleagues shared a very long text on the WeChat moment. Usually, I hate long text. I wouldn't read long text because I think it hurts my eyes and it takes a long time, right, to read them. But I had some respect for him because he used to be my supervisor when I was an English writer. I also did some translation work. So he was my supervisor. We got along really well. He was a funny guy. There are only that few people I respect, and he's one of them. Clearly, not that clearly, but from that text, the message he sent, it's obvious that he has also quitted working in our former employer. So he started his own business. But instead of following the standard procedure, renting an office and register for a company, he went freelance, just like I do. But he still specialized in writing. So what he did was he started writing college application essays for those who want to study in the United States, Britain, or Australia, the English-speaking countries. Students would need English application essays. Now, the thing is, we all have some experience writing the application essays. He used to study in Britain. Then he came back and got married here in Beijing. Sorry, it's a little messy. I don't want to use the scissors anymore. I want to get that kimchi. It's in my kitchen. But I don't want to go. Okay, we'll do it next time. So, he started working alone for himself. Because that way he can make more money. Usually if you work for the company, you only get like 10-15% of the commission, right? There's a huge difference. But he did not have an office or anything. He worked at home and on recommendations, by word of mouth. So he used the connections from the students to get new clients. This is a little difficult for freelancers because this industry is still about reputation, right? If you have a reputation, the clients would come. Nobody would trust a person who works at home. This is a big project. However, the thing with word of mouth is that if a student or if your client really trusts you and he had a great collaboration with you, he would recommend his or her friends, students, colleagues, or whatever. Yeah, then you would have new clients at no cost. You don't have to pay advertising, very expensive advertising. Actually, if you work at home, you get recommendations, you get some clients. It's very easy to break even, to make a living. I mean, you probably need like 5 or 6 students each year. 1 year, 5 students. And you don't have to worry about rent and food anymore. This is probably why many people start their own business, their own studio, after working for the big corporation. Okay, this is the backdrop of the story. Oh my god, it's 14 minutes. Oh. You all know me. I like to ramble. I should give him a name. Let's call him Bobby. What a lame name, lame-ass name. So Bobby works at home now. after reading his message, I learned that he's working at home. He's doing pretty well for this year. All his students got into good colleges, ideal ones. So we're mutual friends, me, Wei Wei, and Bobby. So we're all friends. We used to be colleagues. We work at the same company. So Wei Wei saw that as well. After seeing that message, Wei Wei sent me one. We're chatting about how Bobby is doing, some updates, gossiping. Now, Wei Wei and I are sorry. We're in language training, so it's a little different from those college applications. So the language tests are a small part, a prerequisite for the application. Students get the scores and they start applying. The whole application process can last a year, so it's a long process. Bobby specializes in writing. Which I used to do. We're gossiping about how much he can make right now. Wei is starting her own business, so she's quite interested. I, on the other hand, don't care that much. But seeing Bobby's transformation reminds me of how we worked at our previous owners. For our previous owners, that was a startup company, pretty new. But when we were working there, all of us had to work our ass off. We constantly work overtime and was underpaid. At least we and I were underpaid. Here's the interesting part. During the application process, it's very long, right? It's 1 year. So you submit your application, you wait for the results, but sometimes things just don't work that smoothly. You send the materials overseas. It takes a long time, and sometimes the school just don't put your files match your file with your application that quickly. Time is money in application. Whoever comes first gets more opportunities. At least there's a bigger chance. So following up is very important. Also, if you want to do it yourself, most students do it themselves. You have to remember this. They submit their application and they just sit there and wait. Sometimes, even after a few months, the material is just not properly documented in the school, so you have to check, you have to double check that they have all your materials and your materials are being evaluated. Otherwise, they would wait for your materials to arrive and you think you have mailed them and wait for them to give you a result. So both parties are waiting and there's no result. Anyways, following up is important. As a company, you have to do it for your clients. Some students, they pay the money and they don't want to worry about it. You know, they give you the materials and then you are the one in charge of the application. So whatever happens, you have to deal with it. But there's one difficult part. Normally, we send emails. We send emails to follow up, to check the status of the application. Sometimes we use the school internet, school website. They would have portals to help you check. So you don't have to send emails to admission. Oh my god, I might be able to finish all of it. But emails don't always work because admission office is very busy. Maybe there are 1 or 2 secretaries to answer all the emails, so your emails don't always get replied in time. We have to be aggressive, right? So we make phone calls. The rule with phone calls is that only the applicants can check on their own applications, not family members, not friends. It has to be yourself. So I have to pretend, not I have to. The staff have to pretend to be the clients, the students, to check on the status. Here comes another problem. Since it requires communicating with native speakers on many complicated issues, students don't do it. The staff members can't do it. Not can't, but at least some of them can't. When I was writing college application essays for the students, we didn't do the actual application part because the application process is pretty detailed. You go online, you fill in the information, you send materials. It's kind of like assembly line worker. Not assembly line worker, at least you have to be able to read English. You have to be able to finish all the all the tasks in an English environment. But the bar for this is relatively lower. So they were like our support team. The staff members in charge of the application are the support team. And we would write the application essays. when we're hiring the sport team, the bar is relatively lower, so they don't have to speak English. All they need is to understand what's on the web page. So they don't have to make phone calls. That's when Bobby and I came in. We had to help them communicating with the school, pretending to be students. If you haven't guessed what I'm about to say, then you're a little slower than you should be. Some students are girls. Get what I'm saying? They are girls. But I still have to make the phone call, right? So occasionally, I would pretend to be a girl making a phone call. I'm just glad nobody was around when I was making that phone call at very late at night. This wasn't part of my job description, but when you're working in a small company, you have to help each other out. So I would help them make the phone call at night. And if some of the students were girls, I would have to pretend to be a girl. Don't ask me how. I'm just glad it wasn't video chat. It was phone calls. Some admission officers didn't care. They didn't notice your gender. What they do is, when the call was through, they would verify the information like your first name, your last name, your date of birth, your application ID, etc. They forget to check the sex, the gender. Even if they do, it's still relatively safer. Why? Because the thing about applying to English-speaking country is that you get a lot of tolerant policies, very forgiving, pretty tolerant, because they have to respect diversity. On the gender section, there are always 3 choices. See, here we would never run into this problem, right? If you apply college in China, your gender has to be very specific. Either you're male, you're female. Sorry. But when you're applying to the university in America, there are always 3 choices: male, female, and transgender, undecided. There are many different options. So even if I claim, say someone pick up the phone and he gets suspicious of my gender, right? He would he would stop for a few seconds. You can clearly tell that he's processing this information. Like, because when he pull out the file, he can immediately see the gender, right? If he noticed. So if the gender doesn't match my voice, I clearly sound like a guy. But it says female, there would be a silence. It happened many times. Silence. Then he just continued. He doesn't ask one single question about your gender. In those English-speaking countries, being politically correct is very important. And this is being politically correct. Not questioning others' sexual orientation or gender. I sound like a man, but he can't say that. He can't say, are you sure you're a girl? So I was safe, but it was embarrassing, really. Since I have to pretend to be a girl sometimes, I also have to pretend to be younger students. I was somewhere around 27, 28 when I worked there. When I worked at that company, 27, 28. Some students are pretty young. They go to high school. They apply to high schools abroad. So some of them are like 11, 12. Now, when you are that young, you have to have legal guardians. So that's pretty normal. So parents can make calls for their children. But I didn't know that. I didn't realize it. It didn't even occur to me that I could pretend to be their parents. After making so many phone calls, I just get used to it. Like, if I saw a student, I check the number and I make the phone call. It became a routine for me. So one time, I forgot. I noticed that the child was pretty young. From his information, personal information, but my mind just stopped working. I didn't even think of the option of pretending to be his parents. So I just make this phone call. I was like, could you please help me check my application status to see if all my materials are available? And the person on the other side of the phone was like, what's your name? All the private information. After verifying the applicant information, she asked one question. She was like, what's your relationship to the applicant? Are you his father? I was like, no, I am the applicant. Long pause. I know I should have said yes, but I panicked. You know, when you're questioned, you panic. So he repeated his question once again. You are the applicant. I said, yes. Put a little too much cheese. Eventually, she gave me the information I needed, but that was a little nerve-wracking. I think the reason I got out of this industry, I'm actually still in the overseas education industry because I'm doing language training, right, for IELTS and TOEFL tests. So they are still within the industry, studying abroad, overseas education. But I stopped being a writer. I stopped writing application essays, and I stopped helping them making those phone calls because it made me feel a little uncomfortable. We had a different opinion. She, when we were discussing this issue, she was like, you can't think of yourself as someone who's cheating or deceiving other people. You should consider this as an opportunity to help these students get into their dream schools or their goals, their ideal colleges, so that they could take the next step forward. Some students were stopped here because they haven't studied abroad, they haven't been outside, so their potentials haven't been exploited. But this is clearly an obstacle, so this industry is more like a platform to help them make that transition. I think different people have different standards or different interpretation of the situation, but I think being a teacher, for me personally, being a teacher is more mentally rewarding than writing application essays. I'm pretty full, so I'm not going to finish the rest. Hope you have a great time. I'll see you next time. Live long and prosper. Bye bye.